Hi, and welcome to a special episode of Data Fix brought to you by India Spend, a data journalism initiative. I'm Alison, and today I'm here with author and human rights organizer Harsh Mander to discuss the rise of hate crimes in India related to cows and religion. Over the last 8 years, from 2010 to 2017, India has recorded 78 incidents of cow-related hate crimes. 97% of these were recorded after 2014, according to an India Spend database that records such crimes. In 86% of these cases, the victims were Muslims. Harsh Mander's karwan-e-mohabbat, a caravan of love, traveled across India earlier this year to visit the victims and their families. Mr. Mander, welcome to DataFix. Thank you for joining us. Now, according to the findings of our database that collects information from news reports, we've seen the number of cow-related hate crimes rise from 3 incidents in 2012 to 37 incidents in 2017. Do these statistics really translate to a growing hatred on the ground between different communities? What was your take from your visits?
See, I think that firstly, what India Spend has done is really important. I think it's the only systematic attempt to analyze the scale of hate violence in this country, about which there's an extraordinary silence in much of the mainstream media. But I would say that the 78 cases that you have reported so far are the tip of the iceberg. Okay. What we have encountered across the ground is a much larger numbers of cases. Many of them get reported, in the local press. Maybe many of them don't get reported at all. But I have absolutely no doubt there's an extraordinary rise in hate crimes across the country in recent years. There's a kind of permissive environment for people to act out, both for hate speech and acting out on hate that we encounter across the country, this plays out in terms of lynching, in individual hate attacks of the kind that we saw a few days ago in Rajasthan, attacks on places of worship, especially Christian places of worship, priests and nuns. Those are other forms of hate attacks. Attacks on Dalits, which has been going on for much longer. So there's a range of hate crimes, but particularly against Muslims, we see a very marked rise in the numbers of such attacks and the viciousness of them as well.
Okay. Also, an analysis of our database reveals that in a third of these cow-related hate crimes, the police file cases against the victims themselves under various cow protection laws prevalent in the state. Can you give us an idea of how the police have been dealing with these hate crimes from your visits on the ground?
See, in the Karwan, we decided to travel across the country. We started off in Assam, we went to Jharkhand, we went to coastal Karnataka, we went to Uttar Pradesh, Haryana, Rajasthan and Gujarat. So we covered a very large ground. And we met about 55 families, I think, through that month that we traveled. Even in a much larger number of cases, I really found a consistent pattern of the state partisanship, where clearly the state was protecting the accused and criminalizing the victim. And in cow-related incidents or in the so-called love jihad kinds of incidents, the victim is seen to be the perpetrator by the police. Let me illustrate by a typical example. So there's a pickup van with cows, and a lynch mob comes and it attacks it. 2 people are killed, 3 people are injured. Police doesn't intervene, doesn't help. It comes in 3 hours later or a few hours later, and it overturns the vehicle it registers the case as a case of not of lynching at all, of A, rash and negligent driving, B, cow smuggling, and C, cruelty against animals.
Yeah.
And the two people who are killed are seen as people killed because of the rash driving, and the people injured. And that's like one extreme example, and it was not uncommon that we saw that this pattern where they didn't even acknowledge the lynch attack.
Right.
A second is where the lynch attack cannot be denied, as in Pehlu Khan's case and so on, but where the attempt is to show that the victim was a lawbreaker himself, and at high levels of the state administration, the Home Minister sometimes, the Superintendent of Police, actually publicly, even before investigation, describe them as people who've broken the law. The cow smuggler is a word that is used, taskar, guy, taskar, etc. Now, just to illustrate the utter injustice of this and the unlawfulness actually of these claims, is that at best what is prohibited in different states, in most states, is the transportation of cows for slaughter. Now, take Pehlu Khan's case. What he was transporting indisputably was milch cattle.
Right.
Now these are I had gone to his house, so he had taken a loan of almost 2 lakh rupees. He and his family members had gone out. They bought, I think, 4 or 5 milch cattle. They were carrying them into pickup vans at 40,000-50,000 rupees. Now the maximum money that you can get for a cow for slaughter, we are told, is maybe 6,000-7,000 rupees. So the moment you see that the pickup van actually is carrying milch cattle, expensive milch cattle, it's prima facie proved that this was not a case of anybody transporting the animal for slaughter illegally, and so neither the mob of course is driven by hatred, but for the Home Minister in that case and the police administration to then say that he was a cow smuggler goes against every kind of, I mean, it's just prima facie false. And even so, I mean, and then we're seeing this series of instances in Western UP, Haryana, and now Rajasthan. I'm seeing where the police is now shooting people, who are carrying cows, again with the defense that they are cow smugglers.
Right.
Now, all of this is straightforward hate crime as I can see it, and it shows an open state hostility against people of a particular community.
Okay.
Even your data actually in India Spend, one of the things that you didn't mention, which I thought was very valuable, was that only about half the cases of attacks were on Muslims, but 86% of people killed were Muslim.
Yeah.
Which means that after the attack, if the identity of the person is seen to be Muslim, there's a much greater chance that the mob will kill them.
Right.
And that is why, one of the reasons that we felt that this Karawan was important was really because of this sense. We've had, it's not as if we've not had mass communal violence in the past. There have been hate attacks of a much larger scale. We've had right here in Bombay in 1992-93. We had Delhi against the Sikhs in 1984. We had Nelly, Bhagalpur, Gujarat, etc. We know Hashimpura where people were killed. But what is different with lynching and the individual hate crimes that we're seeing now and mass communal violence of the past was that mass communal violence still, however large the scale, was bound by geography and bound by time. So it happens in a particular location, it has a beginning, it has an end, and things slowly settle down. But with lynching and these kinds of individual hate attacks, the message that is communicated is that if you belong to that particular identity, you're no longer safe anywhere. You're not safe in your own home,
Right.
You're not safe on a train, you're not safe walking down the road. You can be attacked for no reason except that you are Muslim.
Right.
I was just the last 2 days back had gone investigating after Zul's attack in Rajsamand in Rajasthan.
The love jihad incident.
The so-called love jihad incident. But really what had happened was that this, now the investigation shows that this old man, for almost 3-4 decades, he's been a migrant worker from Bengal working to support his family. This man who killed him met him probably for the first time that morning. Even the claim is that he is angry about love jihad, and then when we pursued with his family and so on. There's one incident 11 years ago of a Muslim and a Hindu association. One 11 years ago, one 9 years ago, and one 7 years ago. Right. And this man, of course, had nothing to do with any of that. And so he is attacked and targeted for no reason except that he was Muslim, and they wanted to attack a Muslim. So they've created an environment where there's this sense of that there's a permissive environment where the state will be partisan, right, on the side of anyone who attacks in this hate manner a person from Muslim, particularly Muslim and sometimes Dalit identities.
Actually, it's interesting that you mentioned this bit about cow smugglers. There are some who say that there are incidents where cow smugglers may have killed people as well, and some say those should also be counted as hate crimes. So I must ask, do you think that they stem from a similar hatred when a cow smuggler kills somebody?
Obviously, I mean, if a cow smuggler, it depends on the circumstances. Suppose the cow smuggler is, I have not come around, one can talk about it theoretically. If a cow smuggler kills somebody, obviously it's a crime. If he kills the person because the person is of a particular identity, it's a hate crime. So it will have to depend on the right, on the understanding of what happened in that particular case. I have actually not heard. I'm still thinking hard if I've encountered a case where actually you've had cow smugglers killing people.
Okay.
The police claims that there's an exchange of fire between them and cow smugglers, which is why they shoot cow smugglers. Of course, miraculously, the police never seems to be harmed in these interchanges of fire, and people are killed. So I think yours is it's a theoretical question. But if a cow smuggler or anybody else or I shoot at somebody because of that person's identity, it's a hate crime.
Right, okay. Simply put, that is how we define hate crimes. But do you think that existing laws are enough to deal with hate crimes, or do we need special laws to deal with this?
That's a very important question, and I've thought a lot about it. And
what do you make of the proposed Manav Suraksha?
Manav Suraksha. So precisely. Let me say that do you need a new crime to be created? Firstly, I mean, there are 3 reasons. I'll explain why we could need a new law. One is that you might need definitionally are the crimes involved covered by existing laws, and it can be argued that you can make a specific law for lynching, but murder and hatred against communities are covered by existing laws, including also the CRPC, IPC also envisages collective intent to attack somebody. So no harm would be done if you have a fresh crime, but it is also the existing law can deal with that. The second reason that you might want to have a new law is that you need to add to the powers of the investigating agencies and so on. And this is the kind of argument that has been used, say, in terror laws, that these if you see it, terror laws as also a kind of hate crime, and so you need to increase the powers of the state in dealing with and reducing the normal standards or thresholds of human rights protection that the accused has, so that you can. This is the argument that was given in terror laws. But there I would say that I would strongly oppose it, because our whole experience with anti-terror laws is that the moment you reduce, evidence before a police officer is normally not admissible, but here you accept it, or there are many other protections. Yeah. So I oppose any dilution of the protection of accused persons, and this is Whereas I am completely opposed to this kind of crime, but I feel that the accused person, even in a cow
Deserves a fair chance.
deserves a fair chance, and we should not dilute standards. So that's my second point. But there's a third, and whether you need enhanced punishments is something that can be debated as well. But I feel that we need one thing in a new law, and I'd argued the same thing with regard to the Communal Violence Act that we had proposed when I was in the National Advisory Council as well.
Okay.
Now, what we are saying is that we don't need to add to the powers of the state or to dilute the protections, the human right protections of the accused. I don't think we need enhanced punishments either. What I think we need is a law that holds public officials accountable for their failure to act justly in issues of hate crime.
So would you then say that in a lot of these cases, simply put, that there is often more than a lack of law, there's a lack of implementation of existing laws?
And not you see, in communal violence, for instance, we proposed that we should recognize a law which we actually call the culpable inaction.
Okay.
So because I've been an administrator myself, what happens in most communal riots is that the officer just does not act,
right,
and allows the mob to do what it does, and innocent people get killed, the violence increases, etc. And that inaction is never recognized as a crime. So we are saying we should recognize both inaction and then, of course, the officer who actually goes and acts actively in a hate manner with hate intentions. But where I would want to see a law is a law that recognizes the deliberate failures or malified action of public officials in hate crimes and makes them culpable.
Okay.
So you follow. So I do want a new law, but I would like a law that actually holds the public official accountable.
All right. Our database shows 25 of 29 killed in cow-related hate crimes are Muslims, as you pointed out earlier. What have you found in the course of your journey across India visiting these victims with regard to reversing this trend? Do you think there is hope?
In fact, this journey was deeply depressing, because behind these figures, what is the stories? And I'd like to say 2 or 3 things. What we found was that there's not just attacks on Muslims, but there's a certain brutality to these attacks that we found. So, say in Assam, we went to this village in Nagaon. So, 2 young boys or friends go out fishing, and there's this rumor that they are cow thieves, and the mob lynches them. And not only do they kill them, but their ears are cut off, their eyes are gouged out. The family receives them, and the family cannot make out that for complete strangers, where is this hatred coming from?
Yeah.
And we found this over and over again. We'd gone to near Mangalore, and there's a boy called Harish Pujari. Now, Harish Pujari, you'd be surprised, Harish Pujari was driving pillion with a Muslim friend on a bike, and the mob came and attacked. So obviously they didn't even know, they thought he was Muslim, and they killed him, and his intestines were taken out. So there's a viciousness to this hatred. Likewise, in this Rajasthan case a few days ago, where you killed a total stranger with this brutality. They hack him, you set him on fire, you videotape it. We've let loose a climate of hate which is targeting Muslims, and I think the leadership in this country, right from the very top, has to take responsibility for how this permissive environment of hate has been created. So that's one. The second extraordinary thing that we found was the videotaping. Mm-hmm. This whole thing about videotaping these lynch attacks, and this is again, in most cases, what happens is that it's the perpetrator or supporters of the perpetrator who take the videos and upload them.
Right.
So when you videotape a crime that you're committing, it means 3 things. First is that you think it's an act of great masculine heroism that you're doing this, which you want to display and brag about to the world.
Right.
So the Una lashings and other this thing. The second is that you're completely assured of your impunity. you're assured that your faces are there in the mob, and nobody's going to do anything to you. You'll ultimately fall free. Otherwise, you wouldn't videotape yourself committing a crime for which you can be then be no consequence. But the third, and I think that's really important, is that you're trying to communicate a message to the targeted community through these videos. You're trying to tell them, and the person is begging for his life, he's cringing. So you're communicating the status of that community to everybody else. And it recalls, the lynching, say, in America of black slaves. And those used to be like public spectacles. People used to go picnic. There used to be picnics. Families used to sit, etc. And I'm seeing that this videotaping of lynching that we're seeing across India is again converting these hate crimes into a kind of public spectacle, a public entertainment.
Right.
That you're putting out a new kind of video game, reality show. It's so terrifying because it's reflecting what we are becoming as a society.
Yeah. Well, thank you again, Mr. Mander, for joining us, and thank you all for tuning in. Have a good evening. Thanks.
Thank you.